Started. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us on 4 steps to loving your job, enriching your career, and nailing your personal and professional goals. My name is Kim Sealing-Smith. I am the founder and CEO of Ignite Global. Now, I'm going to be sharing a lot of information with you today, but I want to start off with a couple of surprising facts and some statistics. For instance, did you know that most people spend more time planning a holiday or a vacation than their own career? It's absolutely true. So many people simply go through doors that are open to them. They need a job, they go find a job. They need another job, they go find another job, without recognizing the fact that those doors might be leading them to someplace that they don't want to be. Those doors might be leading them to a plateau, or worse, to a dead end where they end up in a job that they hate or a career that they loathe. Don't let the lack of career planning, the lack of proactively taking a hold of your career and driving it to where you want to go, cost you and your family your dreams, your hopes, your goals, your ambitions. Did you know that most people expect their direct manager to have their career interests in mind? And yet, according to a recent survey by the outplacement firm Right Management, 37% of the employees that they surveyed have never had a career development conversation with their manager. Not only the manager that they have currently, any manager that they've had throughout their career. So now it's time for you guys to interact with me. Type in the chat box or the questions box. When was the last time that you talked to your manager about your career? When was the last time that you had the career development discussion with your manager? Go ahead and type into that questions box. Never have. That's not surprising. Last month, oh, good. 2 years ago, 6 months ago. Excellent. Within the last 6 months, July of 2016, but it was unproductive. It was a tick in the box exercise. I hear that a lot. Just after the interview about 6 months ago, every year, 3 months ago, start of this year. Okay, well, that's great because it sounds like many of you are having those career development conversations, but they may not be hitting the mark. They may be ticking the box exercises, and they certainly may not be frequent enough. This is not surprising. I see this all the time. One of the things that I really want to emphasize today is that the days of the gold watch are gone. You know as well as I do that that social contract between employer and employee has long gone. And in fact, nowadays, your career is a DIY project. You are responsible for controlling your career. You're responsible for understanding where you want to go and how you want to get there. And yet, most people have never had any formal career training or any formal training on how to even set personal goals and make sure that those professional goals support and align with those personal goals. And much of the training that we have had, which typically takes place in school, let's face it, much of that training is actually incorrect. Much of what we learned about how to manage our career does not serve us. I'll be talking about that here in a second. I want to help you take control. I want to help you recognize the importance of driving your career, understanding what your destination is, and setting a clear path so that you can make those decisions with confidence and certainty and keep yourself on track. Now, I do not take lightly the fact that you have taken an hour and 15 minutes out of your day to be with me. So I want to make sure that you get as much value as you possibly can. So if you would, turn off anything else in the background, Skype, email, Facebook, anything that might distract you. Silence your phone, close your door, and give yourself time and permission to concentrate on you. And if you haven't already done so, make sure that you download the workbook, the handbook that goes with that, because we will be going through that, and take notes for yourself. It'll help you cement the information that you get. And like I said, I have a lot of information to impart on you today. So I will be taking 15 minutes of questions and answers at the very end. Feel free to type in your questions into the questions box at any moment, but I will not answer them until the end, just because I want to make sure that I stay on flow and that I give out as much information as I possibly can in the time that we have available. Now, I know some of you, because this is actually the third webinar that I've done in 2 days, and I know that some of your questions are around, gosh, will this really work? How is your framework different than other frameworks, maybe other books that I've read or other maybe career coaches that I've worked with? Or, how can this help me answer the questions that I've been dealing with for months and if not years? Well, I can put my hand on my heart, and I'll tell you a little bit about how I developed this framework and a little bit about my background here in a minute. But what I can say for certain is that I can put my hand on my heart and tell you that this framework will work for you if you fall into one of just a few categories. You are in the right place if you're somebody who loved your job once, but now you're finding yourself bored or frustrated. You might not know what to do next, or you might be afraid to make a move because there's a lot of uncertainty out there and you need this job and you're afraid to pull the rug out from under yourself or your family. You're in the right place if your priorities have changed and now you're afraid that professional demands might interfere with your personal goals. Perhaps you've just gotten married or are in the midst of raising kids, or you're on the other end of the continuum and you're taking care of elderly parents, or you're taking care of you are a caregiver for other people. You're in the right place if you want to make sure that your professional goals do not interfere and, in fact, support and align with your personal goals. Maybe you've done really well in your career, and if so, congratulations. But now you feel stuck or unsure about your next step. What I want to say here is that is normal and natural. And I see people come to that point throughout their career at several different points in time. Maybe you've got a secret desire to start your own business, but you're not sure that you have what it takes to do that. Or finally, maybe you're starting to think about that third act. You're starting to think about retirement, but you don't want to retire like your parents did. I mean, how many of us have seen our parents or our parents' friends retire and then drop dead 6 months later from a heart attack? So if that is you, if you fall into any one of those categories, you definitely are in the right place. All right, so let me start by asking you a question. Why did you leave your last job? Were you running from that job, or were you running to a job that you knew excited you and fit you to a T? Go ahead and type in the questions box. Why did you leave your last job? Were you running from a job or to a job? Running from, a little bit of both. Running to, running from, running from. Bored, yes. Went to a job that excited me and closer to home, great. Went to a job that excited me, but discovered that it wasn't actually what I thought it was. Little of both, running from, running from, running from. Oh, I sense a pattern here. Not surprising, because so many people end up, again, going through those doors that are open to them because they are in a job that at one point in time they did love, but something's happened and now they're bored, they're frustrated. And what I see so many times is that we understand, this isn't working anymore, so I need to go to something else. Now, that's okay if you know what the next right step in your career is. But so many people don't know that. And even worse, so many people end up wanting to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let me tell you a story. I'll tell you a little bit about my background in a moment, but I spent 2 years, I'll tell you a little bit now. I spent 15 years as a recruitment consultant and 2 years after that as an individual career coach. Now, I don't do a lot of that anymore, But the first 2 years that I started my business from 2009 to 2011, I did a lot of individual career coaching. And during that time, I worked with a woman by the name of Jane. Now, when I first started my business, Ignite Global, I actually did a lot of public speaking on career management, and I do very little of it now. This webinar is actually one of a very handful of webinars that I've done in the past few years. But I did this presentation for a group of CPAs, and one gentleman came to me and said, Kim, can you help my wife? My wife, Jane, has been a paralegal for 26 years, and in fact, she's worked for the same manager for 17 years. But in the last year, she's really become frustrated. In fact, she's so stressed out that she's starting to have migraine headaches. Jane was doing really well in her job. She loved her job for 16 of the 17 years that she's worked for the company. But a year ago, something changed, and now she's just beside herself. She knows that she wants to change industries. She knows that she doesn't want to be a paralegal anymore, but she doesn't know what she wants to do. And I said, well, certainly I can help her. In fact, I specialized at the time because it was at the beginning of the downturn back in 2009, 2010. I specialized in helping people really understand what their passion was, what their niche in life was. And so I said, yes, of course I will help Jane. Well, Jane signed up for a 10-session career coaching series, which I used to do. And that's about how many sessions that it took to help somebody transition into a new career. Well, I refunded Jane 9 of those 10 sessions because I quickly learned that she didn't need to change careers. In fact, she didn't even need to change jobs. It didn't make any sense to me that everything was going along great until a year ago. So I started asking her a lot of questions because I wanted to find out what had shifted, what had changed a year ago. Well, long story short, I found out that a year previous to this, Jane had actually moved offices. Her whole company moved from one office building to the next. And in that move, Jane herself moved from being in an individual office right next to her manager to one in an open plan environment. And believe it or not, I thought, oh, that's it. The open plan environment's stressing her out. No, it turns out she really liked the open plan environment. What we discovered is that the desk that she was assigned was under a very harsh light, to the point where she actually had to wear a ball cap to work some days. And I thought to myself, optic nerve, harsh light, ball cap to work. I wonder if that has to do with her migraine headaches. So I asked her, Jane, can you change desks? And she said, yes, I can. So I said, great. Why don't you go ahead and change a desk and see if that makes a difference? She did that. And I swear to God, she never had another migraine headache again. And she regained her confidence. The other thing that we did is that we scheduled a 15-minute-a-week meeting with her manager, which, remember, she sat right next to in the old office, but in the new office, he was on another floor. Now, I've actually found this exercise so powerful that I created a formal exercise that I call Fall in Love with My Job Again. And I am really pleased to say that I'm going to be offering this as a bonus to everybody that sticks through to the end of this webinar with me. This is your bonus because this is so critically important to help you get into an emotionally neutral frame of mind before you make those big decisions. Because indeed, I want to shift your mindset from running from an old job to being really clear on what that new job will entail and what is the next right step for me. So the only way that, or the best way that I've discovered to do this is by going through this exercise called Fall in Love with Your Job Again. Now, I have helped many people fall in love with their job again, but some people that's too far of a stretch. But I at least want you to fall in like with your job so that you can get into that emotionally neutral frame of mind. And here's Jane's success story. After changing desks and scheduling the weekly meeting, she realized that she didn't have to retrain into another field. She didn't have to throw that baby out with the bathwater. In fact, she didn't even have to change jobs. She fell in love with her job again, and I talked to her every 6 months for 3 years, and it stuck. So here's what we're going to be covering today. Here's what you're going to walk away from this webinar learning. First of all, how to avoid making the wrong decision from a place of anger, frustration, or fear. Well, guess what? We've already covered that. That's to get into that emotionally neutral frame of mind so that you can fix what's immediately broken and you can be emotionally neutral to make the tough decisions that you need to make to decide, should I stay, should I go, what needs to change in order for me to be truly happy, truly fulfilled. The second thing that we'll be talking about is why you might have been asking yourself the wrong question. And by the way, this is the question that we are taught to ask ourselves since high school. Why we ask ourselves the wrong question when thinking about our career, and the three most important things to consider when planning our next 3 to 5 years. The third point is why it's important to consider all of your options. Now, most of us have blinkers on. We don't see what we don't see. And there are some career options, either internal in the company that we currently work at or external, that we may not see or we may be afraid to look at. So I'm going to help you with some tools that will give you the opportunity to take off those blinkers and look at all of your options and talk about the three categories that those options fall into, because they are three distinct categories. Then I'll be sharing my number one marketing tip to put you streets ahead of your competition and to give you an unfair advantage when looking for your next job. And I can promise you, I can absolutely promise you that this is what we will be doing, because I've got a success story of a gentleman who has applied for multiple roles throughout a period of time, never getting a call back. He employed this marketing tip and he got 3 calls back in one afternoon. So I promise you it works. And then a Jedi mindset trick to help you stay positive and focused while making these tough decisions and while making your moves throughout your career. So let me tell you a little bit about how I created this framework that I'm going to be sharing with you today. As I mentioned earlier, I was a recruitment consultant for 15 years. And in that time, I helped over 5,000 people better manage their careers and get jobs that they absolutely loved. I took what I learned during that time as an international recruiter and I put it to work for 2 years as a professional career coach. Now, that's part of what I do now, but not all of what I do. You see, I became obsessed, and I think that that's a valid word, obsessed with why some people succeed in both achieving their professional and their personal goals, and others fail. And I think the reason that I became obsessed with it is because I did not do a great job in managing my own career the first few years that I started off. This, believe it or not, is me on the right-hand side. That's me with my friend Marianne Hicks on the left-hand side, standing in the front desk, behind the front desk at the Hermitage Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee. I was 19 years old. It was the early 80s, so you can do the math. And yes, that is an 80s perm. Don't you love it? And yes, that is my natural hair color. I discovered only a few years ago that blondes indeed do have more fun. Now, when I was 19 years old, I started working in this hotel, and I was working behind the front desk. And apparently I was doing a pretty good job, because Dennis Morgan, my general manager at the time, said to me one day, he said, I see some potential in you. What I'd like to do is I'd like to help you in your career. Well, what he actually had in mind was putting me in kind of an informal management and training program and rotating me through several different departments to give me experience in a broad range of areas within the hotel industry. However, the very first department that he put me into was the accounting department. Made complete sense because that's where all the other departments kind of flowed into. But my 19-year-old self heard, I see some potential in you, Kim. I think you'd make a great accountant. So when Dennis Morgan was transferred 6 months later, and I was still in accounting, I decided, well, I guess that's my future. So based on some good advice by somebody that I trusted and respected, and by the way, I misunderstood that good advice, I made a decision that would set the course of the rest of my life. And initially, it was the wrong course. I went to The Ohio State University. I graduated with a double major in accounting and computer science, and I got a coveted job with KPMG. And I was miserable. And I stayed with KPMG for about 2 years, and I decided, that's not really, being an auditor is not really for me. So I think I'm going to go get a job inside a company. And I got a job as a reinsurance accountant with Republic Insurance in Dallas, Texas. KPMG moved me from Boston to Dallas. And indeed, I was miserable. Well, it took me 5 years altogether and several different jobs to discover that the common denominator in all of these miserable experiences wasn't the company, wasn't the job, wasn't the manager that I had. It was me. I was not a good accountant. I never should have gone into accounting. Luckily, I fell into recruitment. That's how I became a recruitment consultant. Now, that role as a recruiter actually had me travel the world. I moved from Dallas, Texas to Austin, Texas, and then to Auckland, New Zealand. And I got the opportunity to start the Robert Half brand in Auckland, New Zealand. And then I decided after 15 years that I wanted to take what I learned and share that with people. So I started Ignite Global. And for the first 2 years, I worked with individuals, helping them better manage their career. And man, it was just the most wonderful experience. But then I decided that I wanted to reach a broader audience. So I moved more into corporate consulting and training. And now Ignite Global is a consulting and training company to help organizations hire, inspire, and retain top talent. But every once in a while, I love to get back to my roots and help individuals take control of and better manage their careers. Now, I've had several things in print, several articles and interviews in news sites and magazines and newspapers within the United States as well as Australia. I split my time, by the way, between Sydney, Australia, where I moved in 2009 when I started this business, and the US, but I do work all over the world. I've written 2 books, Mind Reading for Managers, 5 Focused Conversations for Greater Employee Engagement and Productivity. And I was lucky enough to collaborate with the incomparable personal development guru, Brian Tracy, on 101 Great Ways to Enhance Your Career. My passion is helping individuals avoid the common mistakes that I certainly made starting off, that I saw so many people come into my office as a recruiter make. I want to help you love your work, find your passion, and truly live up to your potential. And that's what we're going to be talking about for the remainder of today. Now, again, we've already covered this first point, how to avoid making the wrong decision from a place of anger, frustration, and fear. Remember, the smallest things often make the biggest difference. So you want to, before making any big decisions, you want to use the fall in love with your job again exercise, which you will get free of charge, no strings attached at the end of this webinar. And you want to make sure that you are in an emotionally neutral frame of mind. The second point, why you've been asking yourself the wrong question when thinking about your career, and the 3 most important things to consider when planning the next 3 to 5 years. So let me start off this point by asking you another question. When you're thinking about planning a holiday or a career, what is the first question that you ask yourself? What's the first question that you ask yourself when you start thinking about planning a holiday or a vacation? Sorry, I said career, I meant vacation. What's the first, where do you want to go? What country do I want to go to? What will the budget afford? How much time off do I get? And where can I go doing that? Yes. What country do I want to go to? What type of break do I want to have? Yes, all these are really natural questions, aren't they? Well, why is it then that when you plan your career, you ask yourself a completely different question? When you plan a holiday or vacation, you don't ask yourself, gosh, do I want to fly? Do I want to drive? Or do I want to take a train? You don't start with the vehicle or the pathway, you start with the destination. And yet, when thinking about our career, we do exactly the opposite. We're taught from school to ask ourselves that figurative question, do I want to be a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker? I graduated with a double major in accounting and computer science, and those were my options. Do I want to be an accountant? Do I want to go into computer programming? Well, it turns out I didn't want to do either. I want to flip that on its head for you. And one of the most important things that I teach, one of the most important things that I saw working with all the people that I worked with, is that the people who start with their destination in mind are the people that end up in a destination that serves them. They end up reaching both their professional and their personal goals. So, what is that destination? The destination consists of three things. Now, I'd like you to write these down because they're so very important. And if you've been following along on your workbook, it's question 5. Your destination consists of personal goals, job or career values, and I'm going to talk about what these are in a second, and your strengths. Those three things are critical to discovering what your destination is and to making sure that you reach your personal and your professional goals. So go ahead and write that down. Let's start off with our personal goals. Why do I start with personal goals? This is something that I was asked when I was doing individual career coaching all the time is, gosh, that's kind of odd that you start with personal goals. And my question was always back, really? Is it? It seems obvious to me, but I think it's obvious to me because I saw so many people succeed who did start with their personal goals. Now, let me give you an example of why this is so very important. This is another career coaching client that I had back in 2011 at the very end of the time that I was doing individual coaching. This woman's name was Evelyn. Is Evelyn? She's still named Evelyn. And she was an IT project manager working in London. She decided to move back to her home city of Melbourne, specifically to be near family because she had decided that her personal goals were to get married and have children. She was 32 years old at the time, and she really decided that she was going to start focusing more on her personal life. She'd done well in her career and she loved her job. But when she moved back from London to Melbourne, she actually got a transfer with the company that she had been working for in the UK. And she went from loving her job to hating her job. So much so that she was one of those that wanted to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And before she even approached me, she decided that she wanted to become a chef. So Evelyn and I sat down, and the first questions that I asked her were around her personal goals. I found out that she was wanting to get married and have children. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, how many of you know the chefs? How many of you know any professional chefs out there? And if you do, what kind of hours do they work? Do they work really cruisy hours, maybe 9 to 5, or do they work really tough hours? Do they work crazy hours? Is it hard work or is it easy work? What kind of hours do chefs work? Ridiculous hours, unsocial hours, not 9 to 5 hours, very physically demanding work. So, conducive to meeting Mr. Right and settling down and having children? I think not. Well, luckily, Evelyn saw that very, very quickly. Your professional goals must support and align with your personal goals. If they don't, you will be miserable, absolutely miserable in your pursuing those professional goals. So what we did with Evelyn is we used the Fall in Love with Your Job Again exercise to help her figure out what those small frustrations were that had built up into something so large that she went from loving her job to hating it, even though very few things had changed. What we identified was the thing that had changed was her team. She actually moved, obviously moving from the UK to Melbourne, she changed teams, and that was the only thing that wasn't working for her. She asked for a transfer to a different team, ended up falling not in love with her job again, but certainly in like with her job again. And she stayed there for a few more years. But then during that time, she was looking very strategically for the next right step based on the work that we'd done. And she found that next right step about 18 months ago. No, actually a little bit more than that, about 3 years ago now. She found that next right step. And guess what? It was in a hospitality company. So she took her passion for taking care of people and for entertaining, which is why she wanted to become a chef, and she turned it into a job in a company doing exactly what she was doing in her previous company. She went from the financial services industry to the hospitality industry. And when everything aligned, not only did her career take off, as you can see, in 18 months, she got 3 different promotions. This was a note that I got from her about a year and a half, 2 years ago. 3 different promotions in 18 months, and indeed, she got married. So your personal goals have to be supported by and align with your professional goals. The second part of the destination is what I call career values. These are those things that you value in a career. Things that you must have, things that would be nice to have, and equally as important, things that you must not have in a job and career. This is such an important step to take, to really think through what you have to have, what would be nice to have, and what you don't want. Not only to get clear in your mind, but as you start evaluating those next opportunities, you can take the work that you do in this component of figuring out your destination, and you can actually craft questions for the interviewers when you go through the interview process for your next job. So what you have to have in a job and career, what would be nice to have, and what you absolutely do not want. The third part of the destination is strengths. Finding a role that plays to your strengths. Now, time to find that questions box again. Let's say, for those of you who don't have children, we're all going to pretend that we have kids. Our child brings this report card home from school. Which grade do we focus on first? Which grade do you think deserves the most focus? Go ahead and type it into the chat box or the questions box. Which grade deserves the most focus? Which grade captures your attention first? The lowest grade, history, focus on the bad, the D. Absolutely right. Yes, that's what conventional wisdom tells us. I grew up outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is a very German community, and German work ethic and German mentality of you have to overcome your weaknesses. In order to be successful, you have to be a well-rounded individual. And I beat myself up for years over that until I discovered the strengths movement. The strengths movement was actually credited to Peter Drucker back in the 1950s. But Donald Clifton, who some of you may have heard about, he wrote a book called Strengths Finder. Donald Clifton actually took the strengths movement and did a lot of research in this area, going back to 1955. And his research that's now been taken up by several organizations, including somebody that worked with him, Marcus Buckingham, as well as a not-for-profit in the UK called the CAP organization. A number of different organizations have studied this. And they've shattered that conventional wisdom that says that in order to be successful in life, we have to overcome our weaknesses. What they say, what the research says unequivocally, is that focusing on your strengths is the number one indicator of success. Your strengths, not your weaknesses. Now, I know that flouts what you've been told. I know that flouts conventional wisdom, but the research is there, and the research backs it up. Plus, isn't it a lot more fun to focus on getting exponentially good at what you're already good at than trying to get better at what you suck at? I know it was for me. Now, I'm going to give you a different definition of the word strength, though, because the way that we typically think about strengths is only half of the definition. The way we typically think about strengths is that a strength is something that you're good at or could become good at, when in reality, it's actually a combination of what you're good at or could become good at, but also what makes you feel strong, what fills you with energy, what has you go into that flow state or go into that zone. Now, if I had more time, which unfortunately on an hour-long webinar I don't, if I had more time, I'd tell you the neuroscience behind it, but there is a lot of neuroscience behind what actually makes a strength, and those feelings about about those day-to-day activities are absolutely critical. Now, one of my, she's become a colleague actually. She and I have talked recently, in fact, just last week. This is a woman by the name of Samantha. She was an office manager when she went through, about a year ago, she went through my online career development program called Light Up Your Career. Now, she was one of those people that had that secret desire to start her own business one day, but she just didn't know if she had what it took. So she decided that she would use my program to explore different options. And she was really cute because she was about 6 months pregnant when she started it. And I got pictures of her, and after the baby was born, her doing the course and her doing the course with the baby sitting next to the computer. It was very, very cute. And she would update me from time to time on all these aha moments that she was having as a result of going through this material. And she said that when I talked to her last week, I said, Sam, you've started your own business. Good for you. You credit the course with giving you the confidence to do that, and I'm so very happy that I could add that to you, because I know that's something that you've always wanted to do. But tell me, you've sent me all these aha moments. What was your biggest aha? And she said, oh, that's easy. The strengths conversation, those exercises to help me really identify what my strengths were and develop strategies to spend more of my time playing to those. Not only did it help me, when I went back to the job that I had on a part-time basis, but it also helped me really figure out what kind of business that I wanted to start. So that is your destination: personal goals, career values, and strengths. Once you go through these 3 exercises, or these 3 components, to really figure out what your destination is, then and only then is it time to choose a vehicle, to choose a career path. Which brings me to the 3rd point in what I want to cover today: why it's important to consider all of your options, even the ones that you don't see or might be afraid to look at. Now, one of my favorite personal development gurus is Tony Robbins, and I love what Tony Robbins has to say about options. Tony says that you have to have 3 or more options to have real freedom of choice. He said, obviously, 1 is not an option. It's not even a choice. But 2 options aren't even an option. It's more of a dilemma. You can either do this or you can do that. Only by having 3 or more do you truly have freedom of choice. Do you have a broad range of options? And this is where a lot of people get stuck. A lot of people get stuck because not only can they not take those blinkers off for themselves and think about the options, they don't even know where to begin looking for those options. So I've come up with 3 categories that I want to encourage you guys to explore. The first are the safe and predictable options. Now, these options are, if you're on a linear career path, what would be that next right step? So if you are an accountant like I was in the beginning, maybe I would go from a financial accountant to a controller, a financial controller, and then on up into a CFO position. That would be the safe and predictable. If I'm an administrative assistant, I could go into an executive assistant. If I am an engineer, I might become an engineering manager. That's the safe and predictable, the linear career trajectory. And then there's those options that I would encourage you to look at that stretch the envelope a little bit. So as an auditor with KPMG, moving into an internal accounting position with Republic Insurance Company, that was a little bit more uncomfortable because it required a different skill set. It was indeed a different job. So it's either moving into a different function, requiring a different skill set, or maybe into a larger company. Maybe you're working in a small company and want to work into a larger company or a bigger role. Or you want to change from, marketing to operations, or from accounting to IT, completely taking on a different function. And then there are those BHAGs, those big, hairy, audacious goals. Now, these are those secret desires that we all have, right? That was Jane's, Jane had a secret desire to do something else. She didn't know what it was, but she knew that in her mind, it wasn't being a paralegal anymore. Evelyn's secret desire was to become a chef. There's a woman that I'm going to tell you about in a few seconds called Sally. Her secret desire was to have her own personal training business. And I've heard it all. When I've worked with individuals on brainstorming options, I've heard all sorts of options like, I want to join a band, I want to learn to sing, I want to open up a cafe. Now, I highly encourage you to look at these options. This is a saying that's on one of my refrigerator magnets. My partner says that David always likes to say that we have so many refrigerator magnets on a refrigerator door, it's surprising that it doesn't fall over. And this is one of them. And I love the saying, it's never too late to be what you might have been. I really encourage you to look at all of those options, but I want you to look at them strategically. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't run from something. Don't think that you're going to chuck it all in and go join a band. That might be the right option for you, but you want to think about it strategically. Let me tell you about Sally, and I think that this will bring this home for you, how you can think about it strategically. When I first morphed from working with individuals to morphing into working with organizations, one of the things that I did is I taught this four-step framework. Now, I've been teaching this four-step framework since 2002, back when I was a recruiter, as well as when I started my own company, Ignite Global. Now, one of the very first companies that I worked with was a company that brought me in to do this four-step process for their women in leadership group. It was a group of 30 very high potential females that they really wanted to help give them the support to help them manage their career, but more than that, help them take their own blinkers off so that they could look critically and think laterally about their own careers. And indeed, that's what we did. And I said, do you realize that some of these women might actually choose to leave? And they said, yes, we're prepared for that, but we want them to be trained on having the right conversations with their managers as well. So great. That's what we did. And there's a woman named Sally. Now, Sally, throughout this 4-session course, decided that she wanted to become a personal trainer. She wanted to have her own personal training company. She sat down and had the right conversation with her manager, and her manager said, Sally, that's great. However, do you think you know everything you need to know to start and run a successful business? And Sally said, oh, you know what? I'm not sure that I do. And he said, okay, why don't you and I sit down and work out a plan together to help give you the skills within this organization to learn so that you can eventually start your own company. Now, this strategy has proven to be very successful. Align with your employees to help them achieve their goals. What happens is that they become so loyal that they end up not leaving or staying longer, which was Sally's story. Sally and her manager designed a 3-year career plan. At the end of that 3 years, it was understood that Sally would leave. Guess what? That was 5 years ago. Sally is still there. Now, you don't even have to, because I know I could almost hear the gasps from around the world. How am I ever going to talk to my manager about something like that? Well, you don't necessarily have to. All you have to do is figure out what your own career path is and how your career path from within the organization that you're in currently or another organization can help you achieve that. Now, this course worked wonders. Of the 30 women, we had 3 real success stories, including Sally. But 2 others ended up applying for roles that previous to this 4-session career development course, they didn't think they were qualified because women, I'm looking at you here, we don't back ourselves. And indeed, once they understood what they wanted to do, and once they used my resume framework to help them design a marketing plan for themselves and to help them get clear on what their achievements were and what their value was that they had to add, they were able to get those 2 positions that they didn't think that they were qualified for. So now we come to putting it all together. How do we figure out what our next right step is? We've done the work on our destination, our personal goals, our career values, our strengths. We've brainstormed options, 3 to 9 options, by the way, in each of these, 3 to 9 options, at least 1 per category. So you can have 1 to 3 per category. The next thing that you want to do is you want to evaluate all of those options on an individual basis through the filters of your personal goals, your career values, and your strengths. Once you do that, you will determine the next right step for your career. And then it's time to mind that gap, to figure out what skills, abilities, and experience you need to go from where you are currently to where you want to go. And that is the basis of your career plan. Once you've got a plan in mind, then it's time to market yourself. Now, I'm really excited about this. My number one marketing tip to help put you streets ahead of the competition and give you an unfair advantage. Write this down. Nobody cares about what you've done. They care about what you've achieved. Nobody cares about what you've done. They care about what you've achieved. Which leads to my number one marketing tip, which is actually a two-part tip. First, when writing your resume, because your resume is your marketing flyer, when writing your resume, you want to replace your objective with a value statement. So your objective, if you think about it, is all about what you want. When you first apply for a role, the first time that hiring manager reads your resume, they don't care about what you want. Now, eventually, through the interview process, they sure should care about what you want, but initially they don't. What they care about is, can you solve my problem? What value can you add to me? How will you help me achieve my goals and my team? And that is accomplished by you figuring out what their problem is, what they do need, and how you can add value to that. And then, as evidence, you want to back up that value statement by replacing your duties and responsibilities with achievements, with outcomes, with evidence that you have achieved something over and above your job description. You've gone above and beyond. You've been hand selected to do something, or you've gotten some awards or accolades. And the measurables, the statistics, the provable stats that will really cut through and get people's attention when they're evaluating your resume and you as a candidate. This works. This is the testimonial from Leo, my engineer that I worked with at the height of what in Australia we call the GFC. The rest of the world, it was known as the recession. Australia was one of the countries that did not go into recession. Leo knew that he was a very, very highly qualified engineer, and he knew that he should be getting callbacks. Even though there were more candidates than there were roles, he knew that he should be one of them that was getting interviews. But he wasn't. He had sent his resume out for months and months and months, never to be called back. He revised his resume using the template that I have, and within one afternoon, he got 3 callbacks, interviewed for all 3, and got 1 job, which was great. And that's all you need is 1. Now I want to move into the Jedi mindset trick, the bonus point that I wanted to cover. And we do have time to cover this today, so I'll cover this quickly. In order to make sure that you stay in that emotionally neutral state of mind that you first got yourself in through the fall in love with your job again exercise, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you condition resilience, that you can handle those knockbacks that are inevitable, not only when looking for another job, but at certain points of time in your career when you get passed over for a promotion, or when you get stuck on a project that you absolutely hate, or even if something happens in life. Resilience is key. Let me tell you a story of Craig. Craig was somebody that I worked with when I was living and working in New Zealand. And Craig, I like to call him Cocky Craig, because when I first met Craig, he was very cocky. And in fact, he never had to apply for a job. He was poached from job to job to job. His career was going gangbusters. Never had to even do a resume. But then the downturn hit. 2007, 2008, he was laid off. He was made redundant. And he didn't know what to do. He didn't have the resilience to be able to spring back from that setback. He ended up being stuck like the proverbial deer in headlights. It took poor Craig 2 full years to find another job. And this is a man who never had to create a resume. He was known in the marketplace as top talent. But he didn't know how to assert himself. He didn't know how to be resilient and spring back. He took a job which was soul destroying for him. He lasted there for about 2 years. And over the last 6 years or so, he's wandered from role to role. The last time I looked at him on LinkedIn, unfortunately, he had not yet risen back to the level that he left 10 years ago when he was made redundant, when he was laid off. So resilience is key. And this is one of my other very favorite sayings. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. You've got to keep that positive mindset. You've got to stay resilient. And that Jedi mindset trick that I'm going to share with you now, I like to call it my I rock file. So this is a tool that I developed when I was doing a lot of individual coaching. In fact, even before I became a professional career coach, when I was still doing recruitment, I used to work with candidates on keeping their positive outlook. And this is actually a tool that I created, that I discovered one day when I did the same thing. I was moving from house to house, and I started going through file folders and collecting those notes and those letters and those cards that I was getting from people that I had gotten from people. I had a handwritten note from the CEO of a company that I worked for back in 1996. I had a card from an old mentor of mine. I had several thank you cards from clients, and I thought, wow, these should all go in one file folder so I can find them. And that's how this started, just by putting all these in one file folder. And I started feeling really good. And I started thinking to myself, wow, Kim, you know what? You really rock. And I thought, oh, what a great tool. This could really help the people that I work with who are really finding it frustrating to continue to apply for job after job and keep getting knocked back. This could help those people that are in their mid 40s, early 50s, late 50s, that those jobs are just not as plentiful as they used to be. How to keep them positive and motivated and remind themselves that they do indeed rock. So this is the Jedi mindset trick. And I encourage you to do this before you have a setback. Put a physical file folder together. Now, some of my clients have gotten really fancy. They've created these lovely albums, or they've decorated their file folders. But it doesn't have to be that sophisticated. I am certainly not creative. All of mine are in truly a manila file folder. But put together a physical file folder of all the cards, print out emails, any performance reviews, anything that tells you that you rock. And then take some time, sit at your computer, and write down any memories of verbal feedback. And you can make it personal as well. When did you feel loved? The important point is that when you read the things that you read in your iRock file, that you actually get a sense, an internal sense, that you do indeed rock. And when you're going through those hard times, review it. Review it every night before you go to bed. I guarantee you will sleep easier and you will wake up feeling like you do rock. So, successful career planning. First of all, you need to determine that destination. What are your personal goals? What are your career values? What are your strengths? Then you want to brainstorm options. Take off the blinkers and look laterally at what your options are. Evaluate those options through that filter of your destination. And then mind the gap. Come up with a plan that will help you accumulate the skills, abilities, and experience to move from where you are to where you want to go. And market yourself effectively. Back yourself. Use my number one marketing tip to really put your best foot forward and stay resilient. So, why did you show up today? Maybe you want to rediscover your joy at work and live out the rest of your professional life on purpose with passion. I like to say that life is way too short not to love our work. We spend more of our waking hours working than we do with our families. We owe it to ourselves to truly love our work. I was lucky. I fell into a career that I loved. Now I want to help the people that I work with find that by strategically thinking about it. Maybe you're frustrated with your current job and you just want some solid tools to help you make the right decision moving forward so you can do so confidently. Maybe you want to make sure that your professional goals don't overshadow your personal goals. Maybe you feel stuck and you want to regain control. Maybe you want to think strategically about your third act. You're coming up to retirement, or you're starting to think about retirement, and you know that you don't want to do that the way your parents did. You feel healthy, you feel strong, you want to remain valuable. So if that's you, the obvious question is, how do I put this all together to come up with a plan that will give me joy, confidence, certainty, and help me do my best work? So what I want to do now is I want to go through some options. You know me, I'm all about options. I'm going to take a few minutes and go through this, and then we will end with some questions. And I promise you I will get to all of your questions. So you do have at least 3 options. The first one is DIY. I said at the beginning of this webinar, your career is a DIY project, and indeed it is. But if you truly try to do this just by yourself, you can find it complicated or confusing because you can't see the forest for the trees. It's like trying to paint a chair that you're sitting in. You can't see all the bits. You can get stuck on personal goals. There are so many people with either fear of failure or worse, fear of success. And if that's one of you, you might not be able to overcome those blockages, those challenges to help you get unstuck. Maybe you have trouble brainstorming your options. Again, you can't see, you have those blinkers on, you can't see it. Maybe you're not sure what your strengths really are. Or maybe you don't sell yourself effectively. Maybe you're somebody who just doesn't back yourself, or you don't know how to keep yourself resilient, how to stay positive and focused. Those are the sticking points to truly going this alone. And believe me, I've given you the framework to do so, but it might be overly complicated and might be complex. You could certainly, option number 2 is you could certainly get some support. Friends and family are great. They can help, but they may be too biased. They may not be able to see the forest for the trees either. And a professional career coach is great. I used to be one. But it can also be very, very expensive. Professional career coaches can be from $500 to over $1,000 an hour. And typical packages are anywhere, from the 7 to 10 hour range. So that can end up being a lot of money. And of course, I'm a firm believer that you need 3 or more options. So the third option is for me to invite you to my online career development training program, Light Up Your Career. I mentioned that before. That was the online career development program that Samantha, the woman with the baby, went through. Light Up Your Career is an online, self-paced system that will guide you and support you in creating a 3 to 5 year career plan using the framework that I just taught to reach your personal and professional goals, to play to your strengths, and to incorporate your job and career values. Light Up Your Career can be done on any platform, your desktop, your laptop, your tablet, your phone. And we're even in the process of developing an app so that you can take it offline. Light Up Your Career works. I have developed this 2 years ago, but I wanted to prove the concept. So I only made this available to my corporate clients, and I wanted to have enough individuals go through before I could put my hand on my heart and say, yes, doing this in a self-paced way actually does work. And now I can put my hand on my heart and say that we're getting great results on this. This is one of my corporate clients that went through. And he was just really looking for a career health check. And what he said is that just having a structured system to think about and a way to put down his thoughts and the tools to help him evaluate them, those thoughts, were so very, very effective. So what you get if you register for Light Up Your Career, you will get almost 4 hours of interactive video leading you step by step through 29 exercises that follow this 4-step framework that I just talked about. Not only will you get the Fall in Love with Your Job Again exercise, you'll have about a 15-minute video training of me walking you through that exercise. You have several personal goal setting exercises, a career values exercise to help you determine what you must have, what's nice to have, and what you don't want. Several exercises around your strengths and weaknesses to really help you truly understand what those strengths and weaknesses are and how to leverage your strengths, how to develop strategies to leverage your strengths and manage or mitigate your weaknesses. Options, how to brainstorm those options, and then how to evaluate them and mind the gap to come up with those skills, abilities, and experience to help you go from where you are now to where you want to be. I've got additional tools to help you market yourself and 3 additional tools to help you condition resilience. There are 8 modules in Light Up Your Career, and I want to go through them now. And the first module is a great demonstration, actually, of one of the things that makes this program really unique. It's sort of like choose your own adventure. It has what's called interactivity built into it. So at certain points throughout the almost 4 hours of video training, I ask you from the video certain questions. And depending on your answer to those questions, it will take you into a different piece of content. So for instance, in the introduction, I ask you, where are you in your career right now? And depending on what you choose, you go into a different part of the program. And there are several of those interactivities points built in. The second module is Loving Your Job Again. That's where I walk you through the How to Fall in Love with Your Job Again exercise. But also, I bust some career myths that we have grown up thinking are true and are just not. So remember, the bonus that I'm going to give you, but the Light Up Your Career program will actually walk you through how to fill that out. The third module is your personal goals. Again, there are so many people that have resistance to goal setting. I've come up with 3 what I call remedies. If you have fear of failure, fear of success, or something else, there are ways that you can overcome those blockages. So the very first thing that I do is I help you identify what your blockage might be, and then I take you through a series of exercises to overcome those challenges. And then I've got a couple of personal goal setting exercises that will lead you through a really robust goal setting process. The fourth module is that career values. Now, this is a fun exercise that you actually have a deck of 52 playing cards that helps you identify what you must have, what's nice to have, and what you do not want. And then in the marketing module, I help you use those values and create questions for the interviewer so that you can ask those robust questions and make sure that the job that you're going for is really the job that you think that it is. Module 5, your strengths and weaknesses. Now, if you've ever done strengths profiles like StrengthsFinder 2.0, it's great information. But I've always found it lacking just a little bit because I've always thought that what's really important is the activities that you do in your day-to-day job. How do you know which of those truly play to your strengths and which of those might be learned behaviors? And then how do you develop strategies to leverage your strengths and strategies to manage or mitigate your weaknesses? Because you'll never get all of your weaknesses off the table. So I've got 7 or 8 exercises that lead you through those strengths exercises. That strengths piece to really help you understand what your strengths and weaknesses are and how to leverage your strengths, because remember, it's the number 1 indicator of success. And then this is part of my favorite part, one of my favorite parts of this program. Not only do I help you uncover those blinkers and identify 3 to 9 options in those 3 categories, the worksheet itself, the workbook itself, does the evaluation process for you. Because when I've done this live, and I've done this program live in many different situations, in corporates with individuals, this piece has always been a little bit clunky, I have to say. Well, I worked with a professional instructional design team, and they helped me develop an exercise that automates the vast majority of this process. So you just plug in a few fields, and it actually spits out a numerical value that shows you which of your 3 to 9 options ticks the most of your boxes in terms of personal goals, career values, and strengths. I can't claim credit for it because my instructional design team built it, but oh, am I happy about it, because like I said, that was always the little clunky part of it. Then, of course, there's marketing yourself. I will help you form really robust achievements, put those together into a value statement, and then turn your career values into questions so that you can prepare well for the interview process. And then finally, conditioning resilience. Now, conditioning resilience is all about mind control. But don't worry, I'm not going to control your mind. I'm going to help you control your mind. I'm going to give you 3 additional exercises to help condition that resilience. So that's what you'll get. But what's more important is what you'll create. As a result of this program, you will create a 3 to 5 year career plan with specific action plans to help you make confident decisions about your career, achieve all of your personal and professional goals that will ensure that you provide well for not only yourself, but your loved ones. But more than that, it will help you feel a real sense of purpose and feel more relaxed and fulfilled because you know that you're achieving exactly what you want to achieve from life. Now, if you sign up for this program, you will not only get the program itself, but I've built in 3 bonuses to help you. The first bonus is a video training. Bonus number 1 is interview preparation secrets from a professional recruiter. I take you through a 10-step process to how to help you prepare for an interview so that you nail it. And I'm really excited about this because I just updated it. And I am really excited about the content. It's worked well for so many people, and I've made it more relevant for today's audiences. Bonus number 2, that resume template. Not only will it help you turn the objective into a value statement, but it will help you form really robust objectives, and it will walk you through a list of do's and don'ts. It will give you a step-by-step process for creating a resume that is a killer resume. And then finally, the third bonus is if you sign up just for being on this webinar, I'll give you 20% off of the discount. And for those of you who are really keen, and I've got a fast action bonus. If you sign up between now and the end of the question and answer session, I will review your resume personally. And remember, I know how to review resumes. I've probably reviewed 150,000 of them, and that is no lie. If I have interviewed over 5,000 people, I've reviewed 150,000 resumes. So I can help you cut through. Now, I'm sure you're asking, what does this cost? Well, the total value is over $2,500, $2,500. But the total investment to you is only $375, and that can actually be made in a one-time payment of $375 or 3 monthly payments of $125. And the way that you register is by going to 4steps.igniteglobal.com/fast. So go to 4steps.igniteglobal.com/fast. And if you do that within the next 15 minutes, you will get the fast action bonus of helping you review your resume. There is a 30-day, 100% risk-free guarantee. No questions asked. I've had my own business for the last coming up on 9 years now in April, and I can honestly say, I can put my hand in my heart and honestly say that no one has ever asked me for a refund. I truly, truly have a great work ethic and believe in only offering value. That's why it took me 2 years to prove to myself that this worked in an online training format. And only after that 2 years was I ready to release it to individuals. So remember, the total value is a little over $2,500. That includes about $2,000 of the Light Up Your Career program itself. It includes the bonus number 1, the 17-minute newly recorded interview preparation secrets from a professional recruiter, yours truly, about $250 value. The resume template, it's about $39 value. And of course, the fast action bonus, me reviewing your resume, $275. So get started today. One-time payment of $375 or 3 monthly payments of $125. Now, if you have any questions or need any help ordering, go ahead and email me, info@igniteglobal.com. I will answer your questions within the next 24 hours. So if you're someone who has been struggling with these career questions for months or sometimes years, if you feel like you're beating your head against the wall and you feel like maybe it's Groundhog Day, you keep going from one job to the next and it's all the same. You want to break out of that rut. If you want to evaluate that third act, but just don't know how to do that, remember, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I can put my hand on my heart and tell you this works. So I invite you to join me. And again, there's 100% money back, no questions asked, risk-free guarantee. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the timer is starting. We've got 15 minutes, and I apologize for going over a little bit. As you can tell, I get really passionate and really excited about what I teach. So go ahead and type in your questions into the questions box. I promise to get to every single one of them. And while you're doing that, go ahead and go to 4steps.igniteglobal.com/fast. Okay, the first question coming in. I get this question every single time I talk about career management, which is, how long should the resume be? Well, the short answer is it depends on what part of the world you live in. But I have noticed over time that more and more countries are adopting the US model of 1 to 2 pages max. Now, you can do that if you use my resume format because, again, it's not duties and responsibilities, it's all about achievements that are measurable. So you'll probably only have 3 to 5 in any given role. You want to make your resume very, very impactful and very succinct. My resume template, by the way, has a number of different, again, kind of Jedi tricks to make sure that you maximize that real estate. Okay, go ahead and type your questions into the questions box. You can ask me any questions about the career development framework that I went over today, any questions about looking for a job, formatting resumes, interviewing skills, anything that you want to ask, or anything about the Light Up Your Career program itself. I'm happy to answer any questions. I am an open book. Okay, I've got a question coming in. How will this help me? I am in my mid-40s and I know what I want to do, but the roles that I have available to me are getting fewer and farther between, and I feel like I'm facing some age discrimination. How do I get beyond that? Great question. First of all, you absolutely want to be clear on what it is you want to do for the next 10 to 15 years, depending on how old you are. You said mid-40s, maybe 15 to 20 years. You want to be rock solid clear on what it is that you want to do, and you want to be able to articulate that. From somebody who is at the second or third stage in their career, most of your opportunities will actually come from your networking and your promoting yourself. They won't come from the online job boards. They won't come from LinkedIn potentially, although putting together a great LinkedIn profile and mirroring that with your resume will certainly help. But the number one suggestion that I have is to get really, really clear on what it is that you want to do and to be able to articulate that. Okay, what other questions do you have here? The number one tip, I know that this is covered. Oh, this is great. I know that this is covered in the online training in the bonus that you're giving out, and I've already registered for Light Up Your Career. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I've already registered for Light Up Your Career, and I know that this is covered in your online training, but what would you say is the number one tip to really landing that interview, to nailing that interview process? Well, the number one tip, which is the basis of this interview training, is to prepare. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. You have to prepare well. So this interview training goes through the 10 steps that will help you prepare and help you nail that interview. It's the same 10 steps that I used to take my candidates through when I was a recruitment consultant. Most of what I teach around career development has, like I said, I've been teaching since 2002 and sometimes even earlier than that, specifically around interviewing. I prided myself on having a very high placement ratio. And the reason for that is that I really got to understand not only what the client was looking for, but what the candidate was looking for. And I made what I used to call a love connection. I made really, really good placements. And part of how I did that was by helping the candidates prepare really, really well for the interview process. So that's my number one tip. Really good question. Question about personal goals. What's the number one reason that people feel stuck when setting personal goals? I've tried several exercises in the past and it's just not worked out for me. Yeah, I know, you and so many other people. That's actually why I created these exercises, to help you overcome that resistance, because whether it's a fear of failure or a fear of success, and I truly believe that a fear of success is actually more debilitating than a fear of failure for a lot of people. But regardless of what that fear is, so many times there is fear around setting personal goals. What if you don't get them? What if you do get them and it changes who you are and how you're perceived by your friends and family? I spend a lot of time not only working with people, but also I've, as you can probably tell, I've studied quite a bit of neuroscience, and neuro leadership is an area that absolutely fascinates me. And so I do know some Jedi mind tricks. And this is part of how I've developed these remedies to overcome these resistances. So the three exercises that I have to help you overcome the resistance really, first of all, focuses in on where the resistance is coming from, why you are resistant to setting personal goals. And then I've got two different types of goal setting exercises, because some people like very meticulous exercise setting, or very meticulous exercises, the people who are more left brain than right brain, but other people who are more right brain like the more free flowing. So I've included both. So I've never had anybody go through this program who didn't, wasn't able to get themselves unstuck, if you will. Okay, great. Don't be shy. What other questions? Let me just go through and see if we have any other questions from earlier on. Don't feel shy. Your questions cannot be read. I will not read out your name. What other questions can I ask for you? Okay. All right. I think I hit all of them from the ones previously. Looks like some folks are typing some in now. We've still got about 8 minutes, so go ahead, type in your questions. Don't let this webinar end without asking the question that is burning on your mind. Okay, here's another one coming in. What other tips besides having a great resume could you suggest for marketing yourself? Excellent. Okay. And that really depends on where you are in your job search. Where you are in your career. The more senior you are, as I said, the more you'll need to rely on networking. You know, jobs at the senior level, they're just not advertised very often. Companies rely on their own network of contacts. So definitely you should leverage your own network of contacts. Now, LinkedIn has made this exceptionally good. You can use LinkedIn to dust off your contacts. One of the pieces of advice that I give to a lot of people is don't necessarily ask them for anything when you are leveraging your own network of contacts. You want to, first of all, dust off that relationship and see if there's something that you can offer. See if you can be value add before you ask for something. You also might want to let them know fairly early on that you are looking, just to sort of plant the seed and then double back after you've rekindled that relationship. Remember, marketing yourself, and it's not salesy. I had a woman on yesterday's webinar say, gosh, I'm an introvert. I'm not comfortable with selling myself. It's not really selling yourself. It's more backing yourself. It's more really understanding what you're capable of, what your value is, what your achievements are, and then being able to confidently articulate that. Doing your resume and going through the interview preparation process will help you greatly do that. I hope that answered your question. If that wasn't clear enough, please. Okay. Yes. So one of the questions is, do I have any suggestions for writing your resume achievements in a role that's difficult to quantify, social worker, etc.? I can quantify anything. Now, there is a book called How to Measure Anything that is a fantastic book. I can never remember the author's name. You might benefit from picking that book up. But in terms of as a social worker, I would say now I don't know exactly what area you work in, but the things that I can think of are, in fact, let me ask you that question. What area do you actually work in? What area of social work do you actually work in? Because I can help you right here. And while you're typing that in, I will read some other questions. Okay. Right. Okay. Mental health, case management, and counseling. Okay. So, if you've had any suicide preventions, you can quantify the number of people that you have seen that you felt were at risk for suicide and that you prevented for suicide. Case management, that's easy. How many cases do you manage? Um, uh, uh, if you were successful in getting people into housing, because I know I've had personal experience with this, unfortunately. My father-in-law had some mental health issues, and getting him housing was very, very difficult. So you can talk about how many people you may have gotten into housing. Think about results. What results have you helped those people that you've worked with achieve? And if you still have issues, Lauren, sorry, I used your name, but since you you and I know and love somebody near and dear, feel free to reach out to me directly. This is somebody that I know. Okay, what other questions do you have today? And like I said, you can ask any questions about the interview itself, the interview preparation process, the resume preparation process, light up your career, the online self-paced module. I had a question yesterday from a woman as to whether or not this could be taken offline. And as a result of that, I'm happy to say that we think that it can. They are developing an app. I produced this. I put this together. This is my IP, and this is me in front of the camera. And the exercises, other than the evaluation tool that my instructional design team helped me with, this is the area, this is all my stuff. But it's hosted by a professional training company, and I had never been asked that question before. Can they take it offline? And so they're working on developing an app for us to take it offline, which I think will be great. The woman who asked that question yesterday did a lot of traveling, and she thought that long plane rides might be a great time to work on her, and I can't agree more. Okay, any other questions? Oh, there's one coming in. Okay, let me take just a moment and read that. Oh, what if you're just starting out? How do I know that I'm not making the same decisions that you made early on in your career? I feel like a lot of the decisions that I've made in my career have been following the advice of people that I trusted, and I'm just really not sure that that's for me. Oh, I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. You know, a lot of what we do, we end up going by gut feel, and that really does not serve us well. That's why I created this framework to help put the subjective into the objective. I created this framework to help you think logically and strategically about things that are typically emotional in nature, like putting your personal goals down on paper. Those are very emotional. Your career values, very emotional. Even your strengths, there's an emotional component to it. What you are good at, but also what you love to do. So I want to put that logic behind that emotion. If you have an inkling that you are making decisions just based on emotion, and you have an inkling that it's taking you to places that you may not want to go, then definitely you owe yourself to go through this framework and think logically and strategically about this. Great question. Okay, we've got 30 seconds left, folks. Any other questions in the last 30 seconds? Now remember, to get that fast action bonus, sign up for Light Up Your Career 4steps.igniteglobal.com/fast in the next 30 seconds and in the next 22 seconds, and I will personally review your resume. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. As I said before, this is obviously a topic that I am very passionate about. I love teaching this. I don't teach personal career development very often, especially now that I'm offering Light Up Your Career as an online self-paced course. Now that I've proven the concept, I'm really excited to offer it to a wider audience. But every once in a while, I love to get back to my roots and to go back to what started me on this journey anyway, to really help people understand what their passion is, realize their potential, and have a job and a career that they absolutely love. So thank you very, very, very much. See you on the inside.